this edition of Sweet Tea and Lemonade. This is a podcast of sister friends who are slicing up life's lemons and serving it with lots of love, laughter, and lessons learned. On this edition, we are talking about something that some of you, and perhaps even some of us, know very little about, and that is self-care and rest. Family, let's dive right in. How are you ladies doing?
In need of some self-care. I will be
Yeah,
honest with a long day. So
I
in
am
need of
with
some
you.
self-care. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. What about you, Miss Dr. Tiffany Hayes? How you doing?
I'm just doing fine.
All
Excited
right.
about this conversation.
Yes, I need this conversation. Let's talk about what self-care is. What does it look like when we're walking it out in a healthy way?
Mm. What does it look like? For me, I think it looks like, to be honest, when I think about it like, am I nurturing all parts of me? Right? So am I nurturing the parts that's important to me? So that would be like my spiritual life. Like that's an important part of who I am, like my spiritual life. Am I nurturing my relational life, like my family, my friends? Am I really paying attention to all of those parts of my life, my work life? Am I doing that in a way that matters to me? I need my sleep. Like people who know me know, like 5 or 6 hours of sleep. Like I don't see how I ever did that in my previous job. Like I don't know what I was thinking. Like I thought 6 hours I was doing something. Like I got sleep, but no. So that's a part for me. So to me, when I'm not sleeping, when I'm not connecting with people that I love and that care about me, if I'm not eating food that I like to eat, like that, then to me, I feel like I'm off. Like that to me is not self-care.
So connecting, eating
Yeah.
well, resting, getting sleep. Did I leave out anything?
Probably connecting actually captures quite a bit of it, because connecting with my purpose, which is work to me, connecting with my purpose, connecting with God, connecting with family, connecting with friends. So connection captures a lot. Even connecting with nature. For something like connecting with nature is important. I put that on my little vision board I put together recently. So connecting with nature is important. Getting outside, connecting with the sun. So yeah, connection captures a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Rhonda? I mean, go on, Tiffany. Yeah, you better say something.
I was gonna say, I feel like my thoughts on self-care have evolved because self-care has become this buzzword, and we're saying a lot. Oh, take care of yourself, self-care, protect your peace. We got these mottos and things that we say. And I think it's evolved because for me, I've learned that self-care does not equal self-indulgent. So it's not just me doing the things I like, but it's actually doing the things that I need. And so I think of it now as the same way that if I was taking care of someone else, I would have to do some things that I wouldn't necessarily want, but that they need. Like if you got a baby, you got to clean diapers up, you got to clean up, spit up, you got to do all these things. And I feel like the same way in self-care, sometimes I have to do things that I need that I don't necessarily want to do. So sometimes for me now, self-care looks like discipline. It looks like, for me, it's taking my trash out the night before because I don't want to miss that sleep the morning of and have to get up early. Self-care is me knowing myself and knowing that I'm not going to stop and get gas the morning of. That's going to go. I'm not going to be up early enough to go get gas and get to my place. I got to stop on my way in. That's self-care because I'm recognizing that this may not be something I want to do right now, but it's for my good in the long run. Self-care means not just eating what I want, but eating some of those things that I need to eat, so that I can stay healthy and I can live and do the things that I want to do. So I love when we're talking about the connection stuff. I think that's really important and that's definitely great. But I also don't want us to miss that self-care looks a lot like self-discipline.
Yes.
Ooh, anybody else on here feel like their toes are just hurting? My toes are burdened with Tiffany's definition. It's all true, but don't you know it
Yeah.
hurt? I think I have enjoyed hearing, it's evolved. And so before the pandemic, it looked like, oh, a manicure and a pedicure and nails, a spa day or whatever. And I've been reading a book that you gifted us, Kyla, and about that radical self-care, and it looking like something that you're practicing on a daily basis, where you're aligning yourself with taking care of yourself. And so now it actually is starting to look a little bit like what Tiffany said. Well, but I don't like her definition though. I like the self-indulgent definition. This I'm a grown-up responsibility definition of self-care. It just doesn't sit well with my soul. But it seems like it is for my life. It may not be good to you, but it's good for you. So discipline,
Absolutely.
that's not a word I want to hear in my self-care definition, and yet it is right.
Yeah, it can be a both end. It can be both, right? Things that are
better.
good for us may not always feel good, but we know we have to do it. Yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah.
it still includes some of those things you enjoy. It still includes, for me, shopping. It still includes those things that were always a part of my self-care regimen. It's just now that I am recognizing that my self-care just can't be about making myself feel good all the time. The self-care is about taking care of yourself. And that has so many different aspects of it that I have to pay attention to.
One of the things that I started to try to do is, my birthday falls during a holiday season when you all are gone celebrating and all that stuff. So people don't celebrate my birthday. Wah, wah, wah. And because, I feel neglected during birthday season, for me, it is okay. The 26th of every month, I'm going to celebrate myself but a part of it is making sure that I do screenings, preventive screenings and stuff like that, from mammograms to whatever. And so that's a part of my self-care and my celebration of myself. So that looks a little bit different, but I think self-care also looks like setting boundaries and telling people no, so that I can tell myself yes. As a recovering person who, I won't say that, because I do, people say, oh, you're a people pleaser. Well, I do like pleasing people, but it cannot be at my expense in this consistently and in a way that is going to jeopardize my sanity or my health or what have you. So for me, self-care also looks like finding the courage to say no, and understanding that the people who cannot receive my no do not have my best interest at heart. And it is okay if they choose to exit. I've learned something about who they are. They've learned something about who I am, and I will survive. And so self-care for me also looks like the courage to say no.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I was reading, I think a friend of mine sent me an article or something, and I really liked it because it was saying how we have to be concerned not only with our physical fitness, but our social fitness, right? Like how fit are we from a social perspective? So with you talking about that, that makes me think about, what does it mean to be fit socially? What does it mean for our relationships to be healthy and be good for us in our social life, and to be good for our overall health and wellness? So to me, boundaries, saying no, all of that is very much a part of being socially fit. And I think self-care is just like reflecting on it, like thinking about, what does it look like for me to be physically fit, socially fit, spiritually fit?
For sure.
I really like that, because I think that we don't always think about that social fitness, and we run ourselves in the ground trying to look like something socially instead of trying to be this fit social person that we can be. And so for me, saying no also means that I have a weekend a month, at least one, where I don't do anything. I don't have any obligations. I'm not talking to nobody. I'm not going to no meetings. I'm not doing anything. And it literally, it changed my life, because it made me it makes me better on those other Saturdays when you ask me to do something, or I got to be a meeting, because I've taken that weekend to rest. So that word no, and those boundaries, and really figuring out what that social fitness looks like for you, that's really been important in this self-care journey.
I like, and you take your no for that weekend seriously. Like, so family, let me just be clear. That no is for even the people that she loves, because I know she loves me. It's even for the people that she loves. And if you call her on that weekend and she catches a whiff that you're about to talk to her about some work, she will shut you down
Oh, that
on
is
the spot.
that
Now,
is
Very
she'll chat with you a little bit, but if it sounds like you're about to go into oh, and by the way, you need to talk to me on Monday. She is for real about that. And here's the thing though, I like you modeling that for me. No. I needed to have that model for me. So I thank you for it.
No, I thought you were gonna say like that no meant like I don't do things for people on the weekend. I was like, Rhonda, now I did some talks for you on a weekend. But you are right. Like if it's a weekend and I'm doing something and it's not work related and you call me, we can talk about anything else. I love just to hear your voice. We can have all types of conversations. But when you start talking about work, I will cut you off. I've been in text groups where they start texting. Kyla is the queen.
I know.
Kyla is the queen.
You
It'll be a holiday. We'll be in this text group and it's with another professional, and they'll just be like, "What do you think about?" And they just go in, and I complete silence. I mute them.
Silence.
I mute them
Silence.
because I'm not gonna
Text you about something else and you will respond to the other thing.
Yes, yes.
You know,
Yes.
the thing about it is,
I'm burned.
the thing about I like that though, because you really you model that. Because here's the thing. So I am not like, while I chose psychiatry as my profession, I was doing the work of psychiatry long before I entered into the profession. So I am just a person who listens and who is a problem solver. And, you know, at times, certainly before I got into psychiatry, was probably an enabler. Okay. So that's just who I am. Right. And then the work that I do feeds my soul and I enjoy it. So it never feels like work for me. So it's nothing for me to just like do and talk, because it doesn't feel like work. And so I go back to what Tiffany is doing, because it was an excellent example for me, because I know she enjoys her work just like I enjoy mine. So to see people who don't enjoy their work, like, oh, I'm da, but you don't like your job. But the both of us, all three of us, we like our work. I would dare say we love our work. We enjoy the work that we do. And so to have her at the pinnacle of her career, loving her work, say, I'm gonna cut, we can talk about this on Monday. I needed to see that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, 2020 is what really did that for me. I used to be like that around vacations, and I used to be around there about holidays, but not weekends. So if you called me on a weekend, I would talk to you about work, because, you know, especially depending on who it was. There are pieces of my job that I enjoy and love. There are pieces of my job that I know I have to do. So if you were one of those people that were in that pieces that I enjoy and love, I'm talking to you all the time. But then 2020 hit, and all the, you know, the world shut down and work became a lot different and a lot crazy. And I realized I was going, you know, we were working from home. And so it was working until 8 and 9 at night, like in meetings, not just writing or something, like in meetings until 8 and 9 o'clock, because everybody was just at home. And there was no good boundary for me between work and not work. It was just all merging together, and my mental health was suffering. I wasn't doing things well. I wasn't doing things in the spirit of excellence like I was used to. And I realized that I have to disconnect in order to be better. In order for me to be present and show up the way I need to for the things that I love, I have to disconnect. So I became really, really the boundary became a lot firmer around my away time after that. No, I'm not going to talk to you about the weekends. No, I'm not going to answer your email on the weekend, unless if it's an emergency. I make exceptions for that. But, you know, most of the time I figured out my job didn't have a whole lot of emergencies, because I'm not in clinical care. So I don't have as many emergencies as you guys have. So what seems very urgent to someone else, I know is not an emergency. So I'm able to say, I'll get to that on Monday. I will see about that during the week.
Your lack of planning does not constitute an emergency on my part. So even some of the stuff that people would think of as emergency, it was a self-created emergency, because they didn't do what needed to be done. And now there's a sense of urgency, and that's it. It's a sense of urgency, but it's not an emergency.
And those things are very different. Those are very different things. And I've learned that. And so I'm okay with saying, no, I'm not gonna do that over the weekend.
Yeah, because that's balance. To me, that's another part. So when Rhonda, you asked earlier about self-care and we having this conversation, like balance is critical, right? And Tiffany, I'm gonna tell you, I haven't said this recently. Yeah, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it while we're on live recording that I have literally told probably 2 or 3 people in the past week something you told me probably in the beginning of the pandemic. Yeah. I was saying how so many people have shared with me about having fun. And I said, kind of like what we're talking about, that to me, doing the work that I do is fun. Thinking is fun. Reading about like self-care, a little books about self-care, like that's fun. And but you said, so I was trying to remember the exact language you used, but you were like, Kyla, but I'm talking about having relaxing fun. Like you didn't like, I feel like sometimes when I talk to people, it was like they were trying to make me not want to have, at least how this is how I felt. I felt like they were trying to make me not want to have my more cerebral thinking fun. It's like, no, don't change me now, because I think God made me that way. He made me to want to think and do all the things. So don't try to change me up. So I felt like you weren't changing me with that. You just said keep doing that part, just like add some relaxing fun in there. I don't know, that changed it for me. I remember that. And I said, okay, like I could get with that. So I do appreciate you introducing that about a balance. And then, so then I put that kind of stayed in my mind since then. Have relaxing fun. That's okay to do as well. So I know some people might be like, yeah, obviously, but for me, I had to work on that. Like I have to be intentional about having that other kind of fun to create more balance. So thank you, Tiffany. I appreciate that.
Look at me changing lives by
Look
telling
at
people
you.
to have fun and rest. Changing
Yeah,
lives.
I
I'm telling
mean,
you, it's transformational.
and I think for me, I've always been an avid reader, and I didn't even own a TV till I started dating my husband. And he was just like, "What in the world?" So
Wow.
I wasn't a TV watcher, but during the pandemic, I really became kind of um, non-cerebral or whatever. I mean, I stopped reading anything much more than the Bible, and I started watching television and scrolling Facebook. I've never been on Facebook so much in my entire life, but for me, um, sometimes scrolling Facebook or Instagram was, you know, I I know it was self-care. It was a distraction. I mean, I could have been doing some other things, but the other self-care I had was baking sugar cookies. And I felt like Facebook wasn't going to put a bunch of weight on me. Because you remember when after I had surgery, I started baking cookies every day and I would eat all of them. So my self-care, which according to Tiffany's definition, I need to rethink, was self-soothing with baking cookies, you know? So now we've talked a lot about our self-care. What, Kyla, you read a lot about self-care. Probably read more than, I don't know if Tiffany reads about self-care. I just started reading about self-care since you started gifting me books about self-care. I don't know what message you were trying to send me, but
Love you.
but I took it in love, and I recorded myself opening. It was so good. But listen, talk to us about what they say, the experts. I know people think of us as experts, but what the experts are saying about self-care. I mean, I can tell you what I
Lord.
say to patients, but what are the experts saying about self-care?
The experts, I don't know. I guess I can just say what I read and what I know. But I guess in terms of what you mean, like kind of what the benefits of it would be, or like what it is, or just
Is there anything
yeah.
that they add to what we've said? We've talked about setting boundaries. I didn't throw in my belly laughter like I ordinarily would, but belly laughter, you know, um, connecting, all that. Are there
Well, I
any
just say
other
this.
examples?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I would say, one of the things I did read about, I just say something I read today was in a blog. I take it to mean it came from a very reputable source. So maybe that's an expert source. But it was talking about the importance of taking care of our souls. And it was particularly focused on people in helping professions and who pour out a lot. right? So I feel like maybe we haven't touched on that quite yet, is what self-care looks like, especially for groups of people that pour out a lot. When we talk about our faith leaders, our nurses, our doctors, our mental health professionals, our educators, like people that are pouring out, social workers, people that work for, any kind of human services type of field where they see and hear a lot of trauma and heartache every day. Right. So I think that's another, they talked about compassion fatigue. They talked
Let's talk
about
about
the type, yeah. So the type of, like, when you continue to care and care for people, and then it can look like you start to get tired yourself. You start to feel emotionally exhausted, not just I'm sleepy at the end of the day, right? Like you feel drained and just emotionally exhausted. Sometimes people start to get a little cynical. They start to feel like change can't come. They start to feel hopeless themselves because you see so much pain and suffering all the time, every day. So it gets hard to see. So that's what I hear some experts talking about, is they kind of broaden the conversation when they're talking about self-care, to talk about that if we're not doing that in these professions, then that can lead to compassion fatigue, or we have what they call secondary traumatic stress. Like we start to feel almost like we're having trauma symptoms, right? And I have to look at that as a mental health provider. I have to think about, like, whoa, like when I see something or hear something, I'm automatically start to feel anxious. Why? It's because it's been so much associated, without getting into detail, but it could be so much associated with I don't know, a title, a name, a place, or whatever, that's now it's starting to make me feel anxious. When I say, like, it's a trigger for me, and it's because of working with a lot of people who experience anxiety and trauma themselves. So that's a big conversation, is how to take care of ourselves and our souls and feed our souls when we're pouring out all day as providers.
Oh, that's good.
And I think even you pour out as providers or in people in helping professions, but also anybody who has like that spirit of empathy, where they can feel sad or compassion on other people's behalves. And then when we look at the state of what goes on in our world, and when you are just looking at things that are going on, people being sick and how many people have passed away, and you're hearing about these messages over and over and over again, it can lead to you being, that compassion fatigue. And so I found that for me, self-care sometimes means not watching the news. Sometimes self-care means, and I'm one of those people that I don't like to not know stuff. Okay. So like if it's a video, I want to see it usually. If it's a story, I want to know the details. I don't like surprises. I don't like being one that don't know. And so I had to make that shift where there are some videos where I have to say, you know what, I choose not to watch this video. I choose not to do this because I know I'm going to be focused on that over and over and over again. I'm not going to be able to disconnect from it. There are some people on social media that I had to stop following because they were always, or I have to hide them because they're always so, the world could end tomorrow. And, we got civil war today. Like I just can't take all that in all the time. So sometimes that self-care is monitoring what you are watching and what you're hearing and what you're, taking in and what you're reading, so that you have some space to not have to feel for everybody else and be able to focus on healing your soul.
Absolutely.
I was in a meeting yesterday, and the meeting, it kind of went left. It was one of those meetings that's kind of inspirational. And so the woman was slated to talk for 5 to 7 minutes, and she was talking about something that was a downer. And I just, I needed to be in the meeting. So I just muted or whatever and turned my camera off, and I couldn't listen to that. Because if I didn't mute, I was just going to hang up, because I just, and so really being in tune to what it is that you can manage, and then dishing it if you can. I'm not going to listen to a bunch of nonsense. It didn't sound right, but I listen to heavy stuff all the day long.
Absolutely. Sometimes you just need something super light and comedy. Yeah, and you said something, Rhonda. You said the word, you have to be in tune with it. So I usually tell people this is from a source, it's from the National Child Traumatic Stress Network. But anyway, they talk about like the different components of self-care, and we've already touched on them today. It's like we have the connection. You mentioned the word connection, balance, and then being in tune is like having awareness. So it's like ABC, right? Awareness, balance, connection. But I think if we have that awareness and we are in tune with what it is we need at any given time, sometimes honestly, maybe we may need some sugar cookies. Maybe you need to make them eat it. It just needs to be balanced, you know? But it's just like, but what is it that we need? What is going to be healthy for us? What's going to serve us well? I think as long as we, pay attention to that and know that. So one of the things actually somebody told me and that I've been doing, she really encouraged me to do this when it comes to like patient care, is like lovingly holding people in my heart, because I care about everybody that I've worked with and that I work with. I do care about them very deeply, and it can be very difficult to see the pain that they're going through. Just so hard, especially when it's been the kiddos that I've worked with for a while and they're older now, but you still see them going through so much pain. It's just difficult. So to hold them in my heart, and at the same time be able to, when I've done all that I can do in a session, I've documented, I've let people know what I need to let them know, how can I kind of separate myself from that in a loving way, like to really imagine them. So she talked about doing something where even if it's imagery, like literally imagining them, what I do personally for me, since I'm a person of faith, like imagine them walking into the hands of the Lord and just walking right into them, and God just embracing them, whether it's the Lord, whether it's people that I know that are their angels in their life, people who are very supportive to them, their parents, their partners, their whatever, but that person they're with them, they're with the Lord, and God is keeping them. And even if I have to imagine closing the door, they're in another space and God is with them, and I'm able to have more balance and then completely be fully present with whatever I'm doing while still holding them in my heart in a way that's not absorbing their pain, if that makes sense. So I encourage any helping professional out there to think about what they need to do to create balance in their life, especially if it's been a hard day. Like today was a hard day in that way for me. This has been kind of a hard week. So it's like, okay, I need to find some way to lovingly hold them in my heart while also being fully present with what I'm doing here.
Yes.
I love that. Like, I don't know if I want to watch people, walk into the hands of God, because that also makes me think that they gone on to glory. So I might have to do it.
Okay, we don't.
I might have to do another imagery, but I like having the imagery.
Yeah, I noticed when I said that, I kind of thought about that too. Like, oh, that's how that can sound. But yeah, no, while they're still living.
I mean, that's just. But you said something else before then when you talked about being attuned and being aware, and it's that awareness without judgment. Because sometimes we are aware that we need rest, we need to go to sleep. We're aware that we need to eat. We're aware that we need to disconnect, but we judge it and we say like, oh, I shouldn't need this rest, or everybody else is doing something different and people expect me and they're relying on me, so I can't take care of myself right now and I can't do these things. And so we push that awareness away. Our body is like screaming to us like, hey, we need something. This is something that we need, and we just push it to the side. And so that being aware of what's going on, but also not judging it, not saying that I shouldn't do it or whatever, and just really being attuned with what you need and then trying to address that need. That's a big part of self-care.
As you were talking, what came to my mind is particularly in Black churches. I don't know if this happens elsewhere, but certainly in Black churches, you hear press on. I press my way. I have stopped pressing my way. I am like no longer pressing my way, like, and making that a matter of something that I do. Now, there are times when I have to press my way, and there are times, but now when my body says, you're really tired, I start trying to find ways to get my rest. There is a reason that in at least 3 ancient religious traditions, way back when, that there was corporal punishment for working on the Sabbath and not getting a Sabbath rest. what in the world? Why was it so important that you could die from not getting Sabbath rest? Well, I don't know what it is, but it does mean that rest is important. And so I need to be found getting me some Sabbath rest. And I'm not certainly talking about a particular day, but I'm talking about rest. And it allows me to be creative. It allows me to, sit still with my creator in mind, and sometimes just be downloaded into. But rest is important, and certainly girl trips are important. I talked to an emergency medicine doc who told me that one of her mentors takes 4 vacations a year. I mean, and it was like when she said that, I could just feel it was almost like an unload and
Yeah.
lay my burdens down. I just felt calm, just thinking about doing that. I thought, I'm gonna have to borrow that right there. That is good for
Use
my
your
soul.
PTO. Use your PTO.
Yes, I work for myself, so I don't get PTO, but I'm gonna use my Sabbath
Creative.
rest.
Yeah.
Use some time off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then you just have to create it for people that work for themselves. I mean, depending on the setup, if you can, then definitely being able to carve it out. Because I remember when I wasn't working for myself, it's like those dates were already built in, and then I had to realize to build in those dates now. It's like, man, that's only gonna come a few times a year if I don't build it in myself. Yeah, yeah,
And we've had these conversations, but I remember hearing a single mother say, "Stop telling me to get rest if you're not going to be a part of the solution." She was a single mother of 2 young boys, and I don't know, it seemed like she felt offended or whatever that people were continuing to tell her to get rest, because it didn't seem like, to her, it didn't
it
feel
wasn't.
like it was a possibility or realistic. Because
Mhm.
I think we were having this conversation offline. When the trash is contingent on you, the gas is contingent on you, the bills are contingent on you. Stop talking to me about self-care and rest and all that stuff. That's she saw it as a luxury, not as an option for her. And
Mhm.
you know
Yeah.
that's
And that's something to keep in mind when we're talking to people. I think for me, like one of the things that, and I did this today when it was a really kind of tough moment throughout the workday. And fortunately, I had maybe about like 10 minutes to just take a moment. And I'm gonna tell you, I just had to pray. I just had to pray and listen to some music. Music helps me. And I had to kind of to go with what you're saying, Rhonda, about rest, is that I had to get into a spirit of rest. You know what I'm saying? Which I think that's my understanding. If I had to say about like what I think the Lord would want for us going forward, it's not like just a day, like kind of in the Old Testament, if I could say that, about how they were, kind of recognizing the Sabbath, but it's like, how can we just have a spirit of rest? So I had to really just remember, that it was one of the devotionals, I think, that I think it was this morning, but talking about like trusting God and knowing that God is within me, he abides within me, and I abide within him. And just like, what does that mean for just me resting? My soul is at rest, you
Mhm.
know, like
Mhm.
I'm being able to rest and trust in you, because that's what it was talking about. So what would it look like in that moment, even if the solution is not there yet, but what would it look like if my soul, my mind truly trusted God in this moment? So I had to literally practice that, and that gave me a sense of rest. Even though I was still in my work day, right? Like, how can I have a spirit of rest even in the midst of a work day? Because I had to keep going, right?
And
So
I think that's an important piece, because practicing self-care, one is like self-care just doesn't happen. Self-care doesn't happen overnight. It's not that you just wake up some morning and say, I'm going to start taking care of myself. It is a practice that you have to, be really intentional about planning and deciding what it means for you, and then being really intentional about making sure that you're doing it every day. But I love that thought of it being in a spirit of rest versus it being, taking some time out. Because we do have to remember that we all have different ways that our jobs and our lives are set up. So 4 vacations a year may work well for someone. 4 vacations a year may not be possible for someone, but stealing away 2 minutes in a corner may be possible for everyone to do in a day. And learning what that spirit of rest looks like for you is something that we can all do. So before we wrap up, are there any last practical thoughts or tips about how we can start building this practice of self-care?
I would say labor to enter into rest. I remember when I first heard that phrase, that seemed like an oxymoron, labor to enter into his rest. And now I realize that I can be sitting still, but my mind is going 90 to nothing, and I'm actually working. And so for me, now as I'm laboring to enter into rest, it is calming and slowing my brain down with my body and just being, not human doing, just being. So for me, rest looks like being and not doing. It looks like slowing my thoughts down, calming down, deep breathing, and just being present.
Mhm. I love it. I would say for me, what I would encourage people to do is like maybe pick the morning or the evening and establish a tentative routine. Like they don't have to be rigid or inflexible about it, but have something that you do in the morning or in the evening that is a practice of self-care where you're practicing that. Whether that means, like some people say in the morning, at least for the first 5 minutes, I'm not going to pick up my phone and check emails or something. I'm not going to go straight to Facebook or the news. I am going to breathe, stretch, pray, meditate, like even if it's just 5 minutes. So I would just encourage people to maybe pick some in the morning, maybe their nighttime routine is putting down their phone a little bit or turning off the screen and just having like that last, even if it's just 5 minutes, just to just kind of like, if they journal, if they want to journal or do something, but just something that's at the bookends of the day, right? Just something briefly that is a self-care practice.
I like
And
it.
I think I will add to that and say just a reminder that self-care is not a luxury. It's not selfish and it's not self-indulgent. It's something that we need every day. And if we are going to be our best selves and present to do our purpose in this world, we have to take care of the resource that we have. And we are the best resource that we've been given. So start small, like Kyla said, if you can only get 5 minutes in, that's 5 minutes more of self-care than you had last week or yesterday, and you're on your way to building even more of that in. So I enjoyed having this conversation about self-care with y'all. I always enjoy our talks, and I hope that people got a few gems that they could take with them. But remember, when life serves you lemons, to turn it into sweet tea and lemonade.
Thank you. Bye-bye.